to the issue of eminent domain, which is being debated right here in New Hampshire, and Josh McKelvin is the political director, the anchor of WMUR-TV. Josh?
Thank you, David, and good evening, candidates. Mr. Trump, you have said, quote, "I love eminent domain," which is the seizure of private property for the sake of the greater good, theoretically. You've tried to use that measure in business endeavors. You've said you'd support its use for the Keystone Pipeline project. Here in New Hampshire, a project, though, known as the Northern Pass, would bring hydroelectric power from Canada into the northeastern grid. Do you see eminent domain as an appropriate tool to get that project done?
Well, let me just tell you about eminent domain, because almost all of these people actually criticize it. But so many people have hit me with commercials and other things about eminent domain. Eminent domain is an absolute necessity for a country, for our country. Without it, you wouldn't have roads, you wouldn't have hospitals, you wouldn't have anything. You wouldn't have schools, you wouldn't have bridges. You need eminent domain. And a lot of the big conservatives that tell me how conservative they are, I think I'm more than they are, they tell me, oh, well, they all want the Keystone Pipeline. The Keystone Pipeline, without eminent domain, it wouldn't go 10 feet, okay? You need eminent domain. And eminent domain is a good thing, not a bad thing. And what a lot of people don't know, because they were all saying, oh, you're going to take their property. When eminent domain is used on somebody's property, that person gets a fortune. They get at least fair market value, and if they're smart, they'll get 2 or 3 times the value of their property. But without eminent domain, you don't have roads, highways, schools, bridges, or anything. So eminent domain, not that I love it, but eminent domain is absolutely, it's a necessity for a country, and certainly it's a necessity for our country.
So would that be yes on the Northern Pass project?
Yes, the difference between eminent domain for public purpose, as Donald said, roads and infrastructure, pipelines and all that, that's for public purpose. But what Donald Trump did was use eminent domain to try to take the property of an elderly woman on the Strip in Atlantic City. That is not public purpose. That is downright wrong. And here's the problem with that. The problem was it was to tear down. He wants to be a tough guy.
I didn't take the property.
And the net result was you tried.
I didn't take the property. The woman ultimately didn't want to do that.
That is not true.
And the simple fact is,
to turn this into a limousine parking lot for his casinos is not a public use. And in Florida, based on what we did, we made that impossible. It is part of our Constitution. That's the better approach. That is the conservative approach.
Mr. Trump, take 30 seconds.
Let me just, he wants to be a tough guy. A lot of times, you'll have, and it doesn't work very well with
How tough is it to take property from an elderly woman?
Let me talk quiet.
How tough
a lot of times, that's all of his donors and special interests out there. So, that's what it is. That's what, and by the way, let me just tell you, we needed tickets. You can't get them. You know who has the tickets for I'm talking about to the television audience? Donors, special interests, the people that are putting up the money. So it is. The RNC told us we have all donors in the audience, and the reason they're not loving me, the reason they're not loving me is I don't want their money. I'm going to do the right thing for the American public. I don't want their money. I don't need their money. And I'm the only one up here that can say that. Eminent domain, the Keystone Pipeline, do you consider that a private job?
I consider it a public use.
No, let me ask you, Jeff. Do you consider the Keystone Pipeline private? Is it public or private?
It's a public use.
Oh, really? A public use? No,
yeah.
It's a private job.
It's a public use.
It's a private job.
Established by the courts, federal, state
You
courts.
wouldn't have the Keystone Pipeline that you want so badly without eminent domain.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have massive, excuse me, Judge, you wouldn't have massive factories without eminent domain.
Gentlemen, we do have to move forward. Dave, Martha, back to you.
Thank you. When we come back here